All right, and welcome back to another episode of Raul's World of Synths. This is going to be the last segment in a series that we've been doing so far, talking about the A188-2. That's our little friend right here. And if you watch the previous video discussing the Car Plus Strong patch, which is what we got working right here, that's going to be our foundation for us moving forward in here, because what we're going to talk about this time around is external feedback in the A188-2. We're going to talk about clock sync and also talk about how you can use the individual outputs of this device creatively. So without further ado, we're going to bring back the Car Plus Strong patch. I'm not going to go into too much detail and explain the setup of it. For the setup, I would recommend maybe going back and watching the last video on the Car Plus Strong patch. But in this case, all I want you to know is that we're going to be using it for sound purposes. So since we are going to be using that, I'm going to go ahead and start it right now. So here we go. And that's kind of approximately what we had working the last time around. It might be a little bit different because I had to tweak the settings and rearrange some modules here. But this is our basic foundation, and we're going to be playing with this as we move forward. So let's start out with something sort of straightforward, and then we'll get into a little bit more of the fun stuff a little bit later. We're going to start out by talking about clock sync. So clock sync is going to allow you to synchronize two BBD modules by locking the clocks of those two modules. So right now what we're looking at is our A188-2 tapped 1, and you can see right here that it's got a clock out and it's got a clock in. So what we're going to attempt to do here is to feed this clock out to another BBD module, which is sort of strategically placed right above it. And then we're going to try and synchronize it and just show you exactly what that's going to do for you. So I'm going to take a cable and I'm going to go clock out from this module. There we go. And you can see that the 188-2 is still operating. You know, nothing's changed so far. And nothing will change unless we change it here in a moment. So I'm going to take that clock out and I'm going to go up to my A188-1. And I'm going to feed it into the A188-1 here, BBD module, external clock in, which is right there. I've done a video about this one in the past, so if you have any questions about how this one works, it is semi-similar to the A188-2, but it is kind of its own little beast in its own respect here. So if you have questions about this particular module, I would recommend maybe going back and watching that one. It's actually one of my first videos. At any rate, we have the clock out from the A188-2 going into the clock in up here of the A188-1 BBD module. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually unplug my output. So excuse if there's a little static that comes up. Boop, and now we have silence. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually patch the mix out of the A188-1 BBD module. And it's fairly silent, you know, maybe a little bit of feedback. But what I want to do here is I want to actually take our audio that was going into the A188-2 BBD module, that little click sound that was going in there, and then patch it out. So I'm going back down to the A188-2, take an output, and now I'm going to go back up to A188-1, and I'm going into audio in, and so we should hear some signal here. Okay, so now we can hear that our output is going from our A188-2 down here up to the A188-1. And just as we expect, you know, I can go in here and I can adjust mix level. I can adjust feedback level of my A188-1, the input level if I want to. If I want to get a slightly different timbre. But we're kind of focusing on the clock portion of this. So immediately what you'll see is, since the clock out, I'm going to go back down to the A188-2, is plugged out from here and then plugged into the A188-2, immediately you'll see that this no longer functions on the A188-1. And I'll demonstrate that. So I'm going to try and turn this. So basically that's been disabled by plugging in the clock of the second BBD module. Now this isn't a perfect example because if I go back down to the A188-2, you'll know that the stages are actually a little bit different in number. The ones on the A188-2 are 3328, 2790, and so forth. And up in the A188-1, we have a 4096 variety. So it functions primarily ideal in that range. However, it should synchronize for the most part to the clock that we're feeding out from here. And all I wanted you to see was that this actually becomes bypassed and no longer functions. But now let's check out the other part of that sync that's happening. I'm going to pop down to the A188-2, and I'm going to move the delay clock setting on the A188-2. And since our audio is actually coming from the A188-1, we're going to actually hear something fairly interesting. It's actually modifying the clock on this module right here, right up here in the A188-1. So I can actually control the clock of this module now up at the A188-2 with the clock of this module down here, the A188, or I'm sorry, I can control the clock of the A188-1 with the clock of the A188-2. Got a little confused there. So there you go. I could actually attempt to do this in reverse order, but when I tried it out a little bit earlier during the tryout, so to speak, the results weren't really as interesting as I kind of anticipated. So we're just going to stick with that specific demonstration, but I just wanted you to see that basically this becomes bypassed and no longer functions when something's patched into external clock in at the A188-1. And then, of course, this actually down here on the A188-2 controls the clock of right up here, A188-1. So there we go. I'm going to unpatch that. There we go. Getting some strange feedback. I'm going to unpatch my audio as well. And I'm going to unpatch everything from the A188-1. And we're going to go back to our sound from here, A188-2. Okay. So now we're back in A188-2 land, tap BBD module with our CarPlus strong patch, and we've looked at clock sync, so we can just check that right off the list. Now the next section, what we're going to look at is some external feedback options. This is actually pretty cool. I was kind of playing around with this for a while, and I was very surprised at all the options that I have. I mean, I kind of knew them, but I hadn't really heard them individually until I kind of started this little demo. So let's talk about external feedback. Right now, when we're listening to this, what's happening is the 396 tap of this module is actually hardwired to feedback. So when I adjust feedback, that's what I'm adjusting, is the 396 is going back and then going through the signal there. But if I wanted a slightly different flavor of that, I could use any of these others right here. Okay, so let's have a listen to that. So let's say I don't want the 396, so there's going to be two things I'm going to need to do. I need to get, first of all, a patch cable, and let's say we want to try the 1726 variety of tapped output, and I'm going to patch out from there, and I'm going to go right into my external feedback in, and we'll get a slightly different tone. Here we go. So slightly different than the 396. And so I'll unpatch this so we can hear the 396 again and just compare. So that's the 396 feedback variety. And then here's the 1726 variety. Okay. Let's try a different tap. So I'm going to unpatch the 1726, and then I'm going to go maybe 2790. So slightly different. Let's compare that with the 396. I'm going to unpatch this. So that's 396. Here we go. And let's actually compare a little bit with the 1726 again. So that's 1726, going back into the feedback. And let's try the 2790. Sounds like it's more resonant kind of in the lower frequencies. Okay, so we're going to go from 2790, try the 3328. Okay, I think we got that in our ears. Let's actually compare it to 396 again. So 396 feedback, going back into the signal, and now let's listen to the 3328 tap going back in. And notice I haven't changed anything about my delay clock setting or anything. It's just raw output from here going into feedback. Okay, let's try something a little more subtle. So let's listen to, I'm going to unpatch this. Let's listen to 396 for a little bit. And then this time let's take the 662 and patch it into external feedback in. So this should be subtle in its difference, but let's check it out anyway. Here we go. A little more springy to my ears. So let's hear the 396 again. That's the 396. And let's listen to 662 again. Okay. Now we're going to go to 1194, just so we've done the whole gamut. Here we go. All right. I like the way this sounds. So you have some very interesting varieties here. I'm going to just go back to 396. Very interesting varieties of feedback, and you can basically tailor it to whatever you want at this point. So nice feature with these here. But it doesn't actually stop there. I have a couple of other things planned for us this time around that will kind of give us a better idea of what other ways you can utilize these outputs as well. But our foundation sound is actually going to be this sort of Car Plus Strong patch. So for the next sound, what I want to do for this is I'm going to bring our little friend, the A151 sequential switch, into the mix. Now, I haven't done a video on this particular module, but I'll explain just very briefly about what it actually does. You can patch different inputs into this, whether it be CV or audio, and by feeding a clock signal into the trigger in here, it will switch through whatever's plugged into it, and that goes out from here. And it's a little jack labeled O and then /I. So what I plan to do is maybe patch 4 different varieties of these outputs into the 4 different outputs there, and then take that out into our mixer so we can hear what that sounds like. So let's actually try this and kind of see what happens with this. And we may have to bring in another module into the mix just so that way we get some kind of different tonality, I guess, coming out.